The next step that we're doing now is embroidery. We're going to add the motorcycle with the word Chicago underneath. So we're going to take our sewing machine and transform it into an embroidery machine. So the first step is to actually do the marking. Over here we've got our embroidery hoop that we'll need to use with the placement grid, and we have our piece that has been appliqued that we're going to add the embroidery to. I have taken the time to mark 2.5 inches away from the edge here, and I drew with a chalk pencil, and then I did the same thing 2.5 inches from the bottom edge. So our motorcycle is going to go in this area right here. We also have the stabilizer that's been sprayed with a light adhesive so that it doesn't scoot around on the material. So this gets added to the stabilizer. And you want to make sure that everything is nice and flat. And then we're going to hoop it into our embroidery hoop. Here's our hoop that will fit onto the embroidery machine. The top part of the hoop carries the placement template here, and that's to help keep things straight when we put our embroidery into position. It has an arrow on the bottom of the top of the hoop, and this is pointing to the front of the sewing machine or the embroidery machine, but I like to think of making sure that the arrow points to your belly when you're doing the hooping. The bottom part of the hoop has a bracket. This is where it attaches to the machine. You want to make sure that this is on the left side of the machine. So the most important thing is placing the top part of the hoop down on our markings that we made with the chalk pencil. So we're going to use the second line on the grid to line up with our bottom placement line. We're going to take the top line here and line that up with our other drawn line, just like this. And we want to make sure that we don't tilt the hoop like this. We want to make sure it's nice and straight. Keeping it nice and straight is actually more important than having the marks be completely on the grid. So I'm going to carefully hold all of my materials, the stabilizer and the front of my bag, so that everything can be lifted to make room for the bottom part of the hoop. And now I'm going to squeeze this into position, and it requires a little bit of thumb muscles. The inside of the hoop is in the outside of the hoop, so now we have to tighten it so it doesn't pop off in the middle of embroidery. So I'm going to lift this up and expose this little screw that's in the hoop, and I'm just going to push it to the side of the table here so that I can tighten it. I do want to warn you to not over tighten, or you can leave like a little crease in this area that will be very hard to iron out. But I am happy with the way that it's in the hoop now, so we're ready to attach our embroidery module and get the embroidery started. Alright, the first thing that we need to do is remove the accessories tray. So it just pops off. And now I'm going to add the embroidery module. It slides right into place, and one of the best features is as we slide it into place, it's going to automatically engage a lever to drop the feed dogs, because when we do embroidery, we don't want the feed dogs to be exposed. And then I'm going to plug it in on the side of the machine, making sure that the arrows line up so that I know that my plug is in the right spot. The next step is to switch off the presser foot. When we were working earlier, when we changed to presser foot, we just replaced the snap-on sole, but this time we want to replace the shank. So there's a screwdriver that comes with the machine so that we can add the embroidery foot. So the shank has come off. I'm going to undo that so this slips on. The shank. And now I've replaced the foot. After everything's attached, we're turning on the machine, and now we're going to see a different screen. This is the embroidery screen, and it's wanting to make sure that we don't have a hoop attached, which we don't, and then we're going to make sure that our presser foot is in the uppermost position. Now this would be down, this would be up halfway, and one more notch is up all the way. So it needs to be in the all the way up position. Once we're ready there, we're going to confirm by pressing the check mark. Once everything has been confirmed, we see the screen has changed again, and we have the butterfly, which represents the built-in designs on the machine. We have the font package, which is represented by the A, and then if we had other designs that we wanted to install, they would go onto the machine via a USB stick, and so if we had that option, we could choose it. I'm opting to use the motorcycle that's a built-in design, so I'm just going to simply see that this is bold and select it. This opens up the designs that are built into the machine. There are two ways to select the design. One way is to use the navigation arrows and just move the bold block to the design that you want to choose. So you can do that by going up and down or side to side. I know that my design is number 33 from looking in my manual, so I can actually use the buttons on the front of the machine to just simply enter in 33, and you can see here that the motorcycle design has indeed the bold selection. So now I press the check mark to confirm, and it's going to process bringing in the design, and we have the preview here on the screen. All right, so we want to do some special things to this motorcycle design, but first I want to kind of remind you that you saw that we were doing special things to the stitches when we were in sewing mode. We're going to use those same buttons, but this time we're paying attention to the icons above the button and not necessarily on the button. There's a little exception. We're going to mirror our motorcycle, and in this case mirror means mirror in embroidery mode and in regular sewing mode. So I've taken my motorcycle and I've turned it so that it's facing this direction. The next thing I want to do is I want to rotate it. And I can see here my double needle limitation in regular sewing mode becomes the rotate design feature when I am in the embroidery module screen. So I'm going to press this once and rotate the design 90 degrees. And you can see here that I have things on my screen. I could have been using the large hoop that comes with the machine or an optional medium hoop, but obviously because the design is bigger, the small optional hoop is not possible for this design. When I select mirrored, the mirror icon shows up to let me know I do have that feature engaged, and then the next row is giving me the dimensions of the design in millimeters. The next row will see this change later, but the next row is just our position in the hoop, and it uses the XY axis. The bottom row shows where I have rotated the design 90 degrees, and then this is something that we're going to be doing right now. This is enlarging the design. Now right now it's exactly the size that is the default stitch out, but I want to make this as big as I possibly can, and I'm going to use the magnifying glass button here to open up that part of the screen. So I'm at 100%, but I'm going to use my navigation arrows to move my percentage to 120%, which will be the maximum size that I can enlarge the design. Once I have it at 120%, I'm ready to select it. And now I've enlarged the design, and we can see that that's indicated here on the screen. It's time to attach the hoop, so I need to confirm my embroidery design. I'm going to slide on the hoop. I pulled the material back so that it's easy to see how this goes on. So we're just going to slide this in. It clicks into position, and now let's make sure that everything is flat. I've threaded the machine with the top and bobbin with the red embroidery thread, And just make sure that you have plenty of embroidery thread down below so that we can do a lot of embroidering with our red. Now I press the confirm button again, and I'm ready to stitch. So I'm going to lower the presser foot and press my stop start button. I like to trim my little threads so that they don't get in the way. And then I can just continue. And this design is going to stitch until it's complete. Our motorcycle is a single color design, so after the deep red stitches out, it's going to stop and it's time for us to remove the hoop, add some more stuff, whatever we want to do. If this were a design that was more than one color, it would line up all of the different colors, it would stitch the deep red, then it would stop, give us an opportunity to change the top thread, then we would proceed and start the machine again to stitch the next color, and so forth and so forth. But we're getting off a little bit easy with this one. We just have the one color to do. The motorcycle's done, so now it's time to add the word Chicago below it. We'll start by going on to a new design, and that's represented by the little teddy bear next to this button. Chicago is going to be written in words, so I'm going to select the font. And then I'm going to start off by taking my position arrows and moving to C. I confirm. Then I'm going to go over here. You can see the lowercase alphabet. And I'm going to engage the lowercase, so now I'll just finish spelling out Chicago. Once you've spelled out Chicago and you're happy that you spelled it correctly, we're going to move our selector over to this portion, which is edit the lettering. So that's highlighted. I confirm. It's asking me to raise my presser foot to the highest position. And now I'm ready to edit my words. Now this is the way that it's going to be written. So word is actually representing the word Chicago. So the first thing is to rotate, just like we did the motorcycle. But this time it's been rotated 270 degrees. And now I want to resize it to 110%. This is just like we did with the motorcycle. I've got that correct. I'm going to confirm. And one more thing is I want to move it out of this area so that it doesn't stitch on the motorcycle. I want to move it to lower. So if you press and hold the arrow, it'll actually move it quickly. Okay, I'm going to see how this looks. So I've moved it over to below the motorcycle, and now I'm going to use the trace function, which is this button here, to see it's going to just trace along the perimeter of the word Chicago. And you can see that that's not quite in the right position. So I'm going to move it just a little bit more. I not only get to move my design side to side, I can move it back and forth. So I'm going to move it so that it stitches out a little bit behind the motorcycle. So now let's have a look. The words are placed exactly where I want them, so I will confirm the design, and now it's going to process it. And now I'm ready to sew. I'm going to take a moment to trim my threads. And now we'll continue. In case your thread breaks or it just simply runs out, there's a sensor in the machine that's going to let you know that so that you can backtrack and get going again. And that button is this. We're going to simply backtrack a few stitches and then start sewing again. So you have to raise your presser foot to do this. And then I like to back up about 10 stitches and then start again. All right, almost done. I just went and got a coffee. I'm going to trim some of my threads, and then I can remove the hoop. Just push this down and slide it off. I'm going to trim the bobbin threads that are underneath. You can see the design, and it's ready to come out of the hoop so that we can sew the bag together.